You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves, they just refuse to lose to this Phoenix team. 8 in a row now, dating back to last year. They cruise tonight, start to finish. Final score, 124-109. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves Postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me, as always, live from the Target Center. Check him out. Give him a follow at JRBorman13. Jack, just off the jump, man, 8 straight versus one team. Do they have any longer active winning streaks right now versus anyone else? And what about this matchup has just leaned Minnesota's way so much the last, 12 months?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other team that they've beaten more than this Phoenix Suns team. But I can tell you what, I think the reason why is it's all psychological. I just think, there's something about this Phoenix Suns team that the Timberwolves just are preying on, like there's no tomorrow. And I think you can see it in some of the ways that, Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards just attack their individual matchups against Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, respectively. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun to watch because this team, when they're playing with a swagger and a confidence like they did tonight, it's a very tough one to beat. So it's encouraging that they're able to kind of get off the schneid here that they've been on for the last week and change and do it in pretty emphatic fashion in front of an awesome crowd on a Friday night.
Yeah, a lot of fun tonight for sure. Lots to get into, too. I want to talk about the game MVP for the Wolves, biggest turning point, plus the Wolves playoff picture, right, with 8 games to go. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Gametime. Gametime, download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so again, Wolves dominated another one versus the Suns. They just cruised tonight, start to finish. Devin Booker, 0 points at halftime, 0 for 8 shooting. KD went scoreless the first 7 minutes and change, and the Wolves were just up double digits before you know it. You look up halfway through the first quarter, up 11, and they just never look back. They got this team's number, man. Like we said, 7 in a row, dating back to last April. Granted, no Bradley Beal tonight, but still, 10 games above 500 now for the Wolves, 42-32. A big picture, Jack. How refreshing was it to watch them just dominate a game for what felt like a while now, but also, too, what are the top, 1 or 2 things you're paying attention to the most with this Western Conference standings, again, with just 8 games to go?
Yeah, I think it's really important for the Timberwolves to just kind of prove to themselves that they still have these types of performances in them against really, really solid teams. I mean, the Phoenix Suns have been playing much better of late. You saw Colin Gillespie, who was excellent tonight. I think he had, 22 points and 10 assists, get into the starting lineup. He and Ryan Dunn, kind of a youth movement for Phoenix, have been really good. I know Suns fans have been wanting those two guys to play more minutes, and Coach Bud hasn't really obliged. Really, really nice win for the Wolves to be able to do that at home, too. I think it's important because they haven't played super well at home for the majority of the year. Looking around the West, really important game for the Wolves to win tonight, especially considering that they came into tonight half a game behind both Golden State and the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers won by 32 tonight in Brooklyn. Kawhi was awesome, had 31 points in 25 minutes, and they're 8-1 in their last 9. So they've been tremendous, and that's really coincided with Norman Powell coming back for them, 5-1 since he's come back from a hamstring injury. And then the Warriors got Steph Curry back after he missed a couple of games and beat the Pelicans in New Orleans tonight. And then the Wolves were 3 back of the Lakers coming in tonight, who had a crazy finish last night in Chicago. I think they gave up 9 points in 12 seconds just one day after the LeBron tip-in buzzer beater. So they lost in crazy fashion, a half-court buzzer beater. And then the Grizzlies, also 3 back the Grizzlies, who fired their coach, Taylor Jenkins, this afternoon in a pretty shocking development that no one really saw coming. I know the Grizzlies gutted some of his coaching staff heading into the season, but it's completely unprecedented for a team, in the 5 spot right now in the Western Conference playoffs to fire their coach 9 games before the end of the regular season. Not something that we've ever seen in the NBA before, but this league continues to, give you new things that you've never seen. So he was 5th in Coach of the Year odds before he was fired, which is pretty insane. So I don't know if something happened behind the scenes or what happened, but
there's got to be more to the story. Maybe we'll find out in the tell-all books someday, but there's got to be more to it. Because you're right, you just don't do that. You do not see that in sports very often.
Yeah, so it was really important for the Wolves to kind of keep their foot on the gas pedal and keep pace with these guys, because there's going to be some winnable games coming up here for the Wolves. Just looking at the schedule, and they've still got a pretty easy schedule coming in. So for them to be able to take care of business tonight is super important. And then the other
100%. Yeah, go ahead.
Another important thing too. The Wolves came away unscathed with injuries. I mean, Ant got whacked in the nose. We all thought he broke his nose after he didn't come back in that second quarter. But started the third quarter, was fine. Didn't have any mask that he had to wear. He had a nasal contusion, so no broken bones, which is obviously great. And then Naz Reid had a really nasty ankle turn in that third quarter, but stayed out there and was pretty important. The rest of the game had a couple of threes that were nice. So good to see him recovering nicely. He's turned that right ankle about 500 times this season.
Feels like it.
Hasn't missed a game because of it. So it's been impressive from Naz.
Yeah, and Ant has gone down with what had looked like some pretty dramatic at the time injuries as well. And we all know the Superman Ant. He has bounced back time and time again. Tonight, another case of that for sure.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Jack, tonight's game MVP for the Wolves. Again, 124-109, 7 straight versus the Suns. Who was it and why? Lay it on us. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Julius Randle. I think the way that he just set a really strong and aggressive tone for the Wolves right off the jump that I think was really important. And you certainly could make an argument that Rudy Gobert deserves game MVP in this one, and we'll get to him later because he was tremendous in this game. But for Julius Randle especially, I just love the way that he was super willing to get downhill and get past, whether it was Kevin Durant or Nick Richards, whoever was in front of him in the early part of this game. And for him then, too, to step behind the three-point line, knock down a couple of threes early in that first quarter, I thought was super important. And for, Julius to score 10 of the Wolves' first 14 points, outscored the Suns 10-4 in the first 4 or 5 minutes of this game was great. And I just think when Julius is aggressive but decisive, he was super decisive in this game, was super nice to see, because when he goes quickly, he plays physically, and then is able to execute some high level passes at really high consistency. He had 8 assists and no turnovers tonight for Randle, which was super important. And I just liked the variety of the plays in which he was making. They lined him up all over the floor. He knocked down 3 in the corner, knocked down a 3 in the slot. Again, was super comfortable playing above the break. And again, with his ability to play in that 2-man game and be an effective screener, whether it be for Mike or Ant or Dante, really Jaden, whoever it is, I think has been important in terms of his ability to play alongside Rudy Gobert, because it's allowed Rudy Gobert to be in the dunker spot a little bit more. And that's been huge for the Wolves, because he's been able to get after it on the offensive glass. And, when the defense brings, 2 guys on the drive, or 3 guys even on the drive to Randle or Ant, that's opened up more of the dump off passes to Gobert, which has been huge. But, for Randle too, I just really liked the way that he was able to make plays at all 3 levels as a passer was super important. And there were even a couple of times when, Phoenix just totally blitzed him and tried to trap and double him. And he's just pretty under control in a lot of those situations, which is not easy to do in today's NBA with how long and quick and physical a lot of these guys are. So you got to give him a ton of props. Again, 8 assists, no turnovers, 5 twos and 3 threes he created tonight. And 3 of those were to Jaden McDaniels, who was absolutely tremendous guarding Devin Booker. Devin Booker in this game did not score until the 3:33 mark of the third quarter. So he was 0 of 8 for the first 31-27 of this game, did not get to the foul line. And for a guy whose footwork is as good as Devin Booker's is, and his ability to score with relative ease at all 3 levels of the floor, the way that Jaden McDaniels has dominated that matchup for, like you said, over the last calendar year has been a true sight to behold. And there's been some run-ins between those 2 guys where Jaden has not been shy to talk his talk against Devin Booker. And I think that, he really relishes in that matchup. And I just think that if you're able to, shut off Devin Booker and just force more of the onus onto Kevin Durant to not only be a scorer, but also be, the primary playmaker too in the half court, I think, that's super important because Devin Booker is a super talented scorer, obviously, but is a really important playmaker for them. And the way that the Timberwolves blitzed Devin Booker on pretty much every single high screen and roll, where they had Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, basically two on the ball, was really nice to see from Elston Turner, the defensive coordinator for Minnesota, and Chris Finch, and the way that they've kind of devised that game plan. It's just a whole lot of length at Devin Booker, and he doesn't really have the athleticism to get super east and west really quickly, where he can kind of get around that double team like we've seen Ant be able to do. And so that just forced Devin Booker to pick the ball up and get rid of it. And then he was just super passive for the majority of the night and really only got into the game as a scorer once the outcome of this one was really decided. And then for the Wolves on Kevin Durant, for neither of those guys to score the first 8 minutes into the game was really nice. I think, putting a more, albeit a smaller but more physical player in Anthony Edwards on Kevin Durant, I think is a really nice touch, because Kevin Durant can elevate and score over anybody. And if you're not, impeding his path to the rim with physicality, he's going to be able to get wherever he wants to go. And so I think the way that those two guys, Jaden and Ant, really set the tone defensively, while Julius set it offensively, was super important in terms of just not letting those guys get into the paint. And then once guys did get into the paint, Rudy Gobert was absolutely phenomenal in the way that he forced tough shots, was able to close out possessions with tough rebounds, get his hands on balls and tip them to his teammates for rebounds, and when he was in positions where he couldn't get rebounds. So there was just so much good that came out of this game tonight, on the defensive end of the floor especially. But for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker to only have 33 points on 11 of 33 shooting, 33% between those three, those two superstars, and 3 of 12 from three. Just an excellent night from the Wolves on an individual level and a collective level in that scheme. And again, I think, to do that on the defensive end, then while Julius Randle did his thing on the offensive end, especially when Anthony Edwards was out for, most of that first half with that, nose bruise, was super important. So all three of those guys, really all four, if you include, Rudy Gobert in this, were excellent tonight.
Yeah, Jack, normally I do the turning point segment right after this, but we were joking beforehand, turning point. I mean, this game was over, it felt like, at the tip. And to your point of, everything that you just broke down, the fact that Booker didn't have his first basket until 3 minutes left in the third, the fact that KD didn't have his first basket until, halfway through the first, plus the turnovers and the blocks and the steals and everything else. Normally we talk about a little bit of a deep dive on the turning point of the game, for good or bad. Tonight, I don't think we need to go over that tonight.
No, the turning point was when this game jumped, man. Because like I said, it's a psychological thing. Totally.
Yeah. Plenty more deep dive. You touched on Rudy Gobert. I want to continue a little bit more of a deep dive in segment 2. A+ performance from Rudy tonight in the paint. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, they're giving you a chance at a huge return. Check this out, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 wager. Why love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you hit your first $5 wager. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in some NBA future action while you're there. 8 games to go in the regular season. It's not too late. Naz Reid, 6 Man of the Year odds, still sitting at 4-1. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, deeper dive. Some numbers that really stood out. And let's start with Rudy Gobert. Again, 4 steals, a block on KD, 17 points, 11 boards. I want to say he just owned the paint. He owned the glass tonight, as you already mentioned, and he was just a huge catalyst to a lot of their success. What made him, though, so effective and so impactful tonight? Like, where did he really shine the most, I guess?
I think it was with his force. I think when Rudy Gobert has an edge to the way that he plays, and he plays with force, and he's the aggressor in the paint and acts like there's nobody on the floor that is better in the painted area on both ends of the floor than he is, I think it bodes super well for the Timberwolves. And you could tell tonight that, like Ant, like Jaden, he takes this matchup personally, and he plays really, really well in it. And I think, part of that too was how loud he was on the offensive glass. Had 5 offensive rebounds. So Rudy, back up tonight. 17 points on 8 of 9 shooting, 13 rebounds, 4 steals, and 1 block. And again, the 4 steals is just also a highlight of, how important he was getting out on the perimeter. I think, when you put 2 on Devin Booker, and then you also have Ant on Kevin Durant denying the ball early in this game, it forced guys like, Ryan Dunn and Colin Gillespie and Nick Richards to put the ball on the deck and dribble. And Rudy was really, really good at kind of being active with his hands and deflecting passes and swiping down at the ball when guys, put the ball on the ground to dribble and try to get into the paint, and just cut off a lot of passing lanes too, and covered a lot of ground inside. And, when you have Jaden and Rudy in the middle of the floor, it just puts offensive guys in a bind if the spacing around him isn't great. And that was a case for Phoenix tonight. And so I think when you pair that aggressiveness defensively and his kind of versatility and being able to defend on the perimeter, like, look, Rudy Gobert is arguably the greatest rim protector that's ever played this game. Like, that's a fair statement to make. And then when you ask him to be aggressive and play out in the perimeter and play in space and slide his feet and be disciplined, and he carries that same level of discipline that he does on the interior, on the perimeter, it is just a really special thing to watch when, the rest of the unit is playing as they should. And he just makes everybody's lives so much easier on that end because of what he's able to do. And I think it just gives the Wolves a lot of scheme versatility too on the defensive end of the floor. And then again, when you compare what he did on that end of the floor, 5 offensive rebounds, 3 putbacks tonight. 2 of them were very, very loud putback dunks. And then also too, I thought his timing in the screen game with Ant was really good in this game. When, Phoenix, another team that likes to send 2 to the ball on Ant. And so Rudy is really smart in that sometimes he holds that screen for a little longer to try to let Ant set it up and maybe reject it, get into a pull-up 3. And then in other situations, he does a really good job of just kind of slipping that screen quickly and allowing Ant to jump kind of over those 2 defenders and throw an overhead pass like Ant did a couple of times in that third quarter. And then when Ant is able to kind of get around those 2 guys, then you're playing 2-on-1 downhill, and Ant hit Rudy for a nice lob there in that third quarter as well. So I think Rudy just kind of had all facets of his game really working tonight. We're not going to talk about the one post-up he had on Devin Booker. That was the one shot he missed. We can burn the footage of that. That didn't happen. Yeah. But outside of that, he was perfect in this game. I think that is exactly the reason why, the Wolves wanted to sign Rudy Gobert to an extension, on opening night this year, because that level of play and that type of player raises your floor so significantly that it's hard to ignore it on a night like tonight. And again, the Wolves held Phoenix to just 109 points, 16 turnovers. A lot of that had to do with, the way that Rudy Gobert plays defense and the way that it allows his teammates to be a lot more aggressive is super important. And so it's great job for Rudy. And again, really big, important reason why the Wolves controlled the paint in this game as well. They were up 54-40 in the paint. And that's been an area that Phoenix has really struggled really all season. They're last in the league in paint points differential. They lose that battle by about 7 points a game. Again, dead last in the league. And the Wolves the last few games here have really done a great job. They've been about +9 the last 5 games, which is 4th in the league. So nice for
really good.
Nice for
Top
the Wolves
5 in the league. Really good.
Yeah, nice for the Wolves to continue that trend tonight at a +14. And then, Phoenix has been really good crashing the offensive glass of late. The Wolves did a great job, spearheaded again by Rudy Gobert. They won 13-11 in second chance points. So good night overall from the Wolves on the interior, and Rudy had everything to do with that.
Don't want to put you on the spot, but any just final quick rapid-fire miscellaneous notes you want to rip through before we talk about this Pistons game in segment 3? TJ Shannon, I think, was the only inactive tonight, but any other thing you got written down before we jump to segment 3 and start breaking down this Detroit Pistons game Sunday night?
Yeah, just to empty the notebook, really good to see Anthony Edwards, feel comfortable dunking with that right hand and was 4 of 10 from 3. So back to his kind of usual shooting confidence that and results that we've seen from him for the majority of the season after he went 1 of 11 in that first game that he played with that wrap. I talked to Mike Conley before the game in the locker room, who, if you'll remember, kind of had that similar wrap on his shooting hand for a little while earlier in the season. Mike said he talked to Ant about it. Hopefully that, some of those tips could have paid off tonight with Ant playing a little bit better with that wrap. And then, speaking of Mike Conley, he was tremendous in this game. Team high plus 23 minutes or team high plus 23 in 30 minutes played. I mean, he played more than Ant obviously in this game, but it's been a while since we've seen Mike play more minutes than Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, and he certainly earned it. And it was good to see Mike play well in a spot that made sense for him to play well on paper, because the Suns have 3 small guards and Colin Gillespie, Tyus Jones, and an old friend Monte Morris, who did not play tonight as a DNP-CD. But yeah, it was great for Mike. 13 points, made 3 of his 7 threes, 4 assists, 3 stocks. Had a block tonight. We love seeing Mike get active on that front, and so. Yeah, I just really liked the way that he kind of oscillated between having the ball in his hands and not. He didn't try to dominate the ball in terms of pick and roll with Rudy. And I thought, too, the minutes that he played, when Ant was not on the floor there at the start of the second quarter, I just really liked kind of the ball movement that the Timberwolves had in the early part of that second quarter with the Mike Conley, Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker triumvirate on the perimeter, then with Naz and Rudy. And I just think Mike's so unselfish, and a guy that's more of a pure point guard like he is, you could see him wanting to kind of dominate the ball and say, hey, look, like I want to be at the controls of this thing. And I just think his willingness to do whatever the game calls for on a nightly basis is super important. And then, again, for him tonight to, it wasn't a game, Colin Gillespie was obviously tremendous in this game, but it didn't really feel like, Phoenix was able to pick on Mike Conley in any capacity, over and over and over again, like we've seen in some of these matchups. So it was really good to see him play really well. And then, again, if I would have told you that Phoenix went shot 52% from the floor, 49% from 3, and lost by 15, I mean, I don't know if I would have believed you. So again, just really, really good night for the Wolves. Great to see him shoot the 3 ball really well. They were 19 of 39, 49% from 3. And it's just amazing what can happen when, you turn it over less than the other team, you crash the offensive glass, and you shoot 3 ball really well. And that's been kind of the recipe for the Wolves over the last, 6-8 weeks here. And it's been nice to see him continue it again tonight.
Easy game sometimes, Jack. Easy game. Fun game, too, from start to finish, for sure. Really happy for that Target Center crowd that got to enjoy this one on a Friday night. A couple minutes left. I just want to ask you about this Red Hot Pistons team. They're going to see Sunday night, 6 p.m. tip. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule, it gets packed with work projects, errands, whatever it may be, it's easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they become more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. It's so simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Detroit Pistons up next, Sunday night, 6 p.m. tip, back in the backyard, Target Center. Last home game before they go play 5 in a row on the road. This is just not the same Detroit team we're all used to anymore. I mean, if you're just a surface NBA fan, you remember, the Pistons were like historically bad last year. Yeah, not the case anymore. 10 games above 500. That's the same as the Wolves, bro. That's the same as the Wolves. And then they just put a beat down on the Cleveland Cavs tonight, of all teams. So kind of playing with fire. Got to be careful here. Talk to me about this matchup and just, again, how desperately they need to start stringing together some W's here with just 8 games to play.
Yeah, those are our Detroit Pistons, Luke.
That's right.
What happens.
Yeah.
The Wolves got involved and have been rooting on the Pistons all year because of this pick. So
that's right.
That's why we'll take some credit for that. But
let's go.
No, I mean the Pistons too. Really important to note. They've won 3 games in a row. Cade Cunningham has not played in any of those 3 games. He's been dealing with a calf contusion. So who knows if he's going to suit up for this one on Sunday. But yeah, I mean the Pistons. 3rd in offense the last 5 games. They have an offensive rating of 126 over the last 5 games. They've been tremendous in the paint. Marcus Sasser and Ron Holland have been asked to play a lot more the last few games with Cade Cunningham out. They've both been tremendous, as has Jalen Duren, who is their version of Rudy Gobert inside, who's a super physical, super athletic player and is just a workhorse on the glass. And so they've been awesome. They've been first in the league in points in the paint at about 63 a game in the last 5. They've been second in points in the paint differential at plus 13. And then, another thing that they've been doing really, really well is they've been getting back in transition. They've allowed the fewest fast break points in the league in that span as well. And so, again, it's going to be a situation, where the Timberwolves are going to have to win this game in the half court. So Detroit, on the season has turned the ball over a lot, and that's largely because of Cade Cunningham. He's up there in terms of the league lead for turnovers, especially as far as guards go. And they've really, cut down on the turnovers since he's been out. So obviously you lose a lot of his scoring and size and playmaking, but he turns the ball over a ton. And so I think, depending upon whether or not he plays, I think that could, be a huge indicator in terms of how quickly this game is going to be, that the pace this game is going to be played at, because they generally like to play a faster style, a little bit more run and gun, freewheeling, and without Cade they've slowed it down a little bit and played a little bit more of a half court game, and they've done an excellent job in the turnover battle on both ends of the floor. I mean, Marcus Sasser is a guy that'll really get in and guard. Ron Holland's a long, lengthy wing that can get around and fly on the perimeter, and then Timberwolves fans are obviously familiar with, what Malik Beasley can do on the perimeter as a shooter, and Wolves fans are obviously, familiar as well with, Tobias Harris's game and what he can do on the wing. And then another important acquisition for the Pistons too, I mean, important now that Cade Cunningham's been out, is that they have Dennis Schroeder too in the wings to be able to help in the backcourt. So, yeah, it should be a really fun matchup. I hope Cade plays, just because, he's a guy who I haven't seen a lot of in person. And so selfishly, I would like to see him play because he's been tremendous this season. But again, even if he does not play, this is a game that the Timberwolves can totally lose, because we've seen them play, Indiana and get, and lose at, less than full strength for sure. And then same deal with New Orleans. So they've got to be ready to go. And I don't think that they can walk in and, take this game for granted, even if Cade is not playing at home on a Sunday. So it's going to be really important that they come ready to go and bring a similar effort to what they brought tonight on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, Jack, don't mind me. Just over here looking at 2025 NBA mock draft, 17 picks, CBS Sports. T-Wolves from the Pistons take Ben Seraph, shooting guard from Israel, 6'5", 200 pounds. So I'm a draft nerd. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to break down some draft prospects with you when that time comes. Let's get into last one, what we'll be talking about tonight and tomorrow.
This is what you'll be talking about.
So what's the water cooler talk, I guess, at work or in the group chat, I guess, after this one? Just given their performance, how fun, how dominating that was, and then when we think about the big picture, the standings with just 8 games to go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about the defense, right? I think the Timberwolves proved tonight that, again, this team is built on its defense. And when Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels dominate the middle of the floor like they did tonight and force things into the corners, force things into the short corners, and force, other guys than the stars to beat them, good things happen, and they can have really sustainably strong defense. And I think, again, for the Timberwolves, like they're just going to be a really tough out in the playoffs if they bring their defense every single night, because for the Wolves, a lot of their defense is about what they can control, and that's their effort and their attention to detail. And again, obviously there's history with the Suns, so that is a reason why the Timberwolves probably play a little harder and bring a little bit more attention to detail in these games, right? And they probably will in the playoffs too, because those are obviously important games that they're going to be ready for. But again, even tonight, we mentioned it. Phoenix shot 18 of 37 from three, 49%. And their offensive rating in this game, was still, pretty low. I mean, it was 117, which, for a Phoenix Suns team to shoot 49% from three on that volume, has been right around what the league average has been, over the last 5 games, with the offense really being up in the NBA the last few games. So, just a really strong performance from those guys overall. And just one final note, if you want, a little stat to, talk to your buddies, talk to your coworkers, just about how much Jaden McDaniels has owned that Devin Booker matchup. I mean, Jaden McDaniels guarded Devin Booker for 75% of the time that Devin Booker was on the floor in his, what did he play tonight? 39 minutes. So Jaden McDaniels guarded Devin Booker for probably about 30 minutes in this game. Devin Booker took 3 shot attempts, 3, while he was being guarded by Jaden McDaniels. He made just one of those. He scored 2 points in probably 30 minutes being guarded by Jaden McDaniels in this game. So he's a pretty special defensive talent. I know we've talked a lot about his rim protecting prowess in recent games, but again, it's a psychological nightmare for the Suns. I mean, the Wolves just own this matchup 8 in a row, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And a lot of these games have been double-digit wins, which has added to the intrigue. But again, the Wolves play with this level of effort and intensity on the defensive end of the floor. You can't worry about if they make threes or contested shots, but you can take care of the controllables. I think the scoreboard's going to take care of itself more often than not, and we saw that tonight.
One more real quick, got to be rapid fire, 30 seconds or less. Jared O. Jack, do you think Finch should play Clark or Terrence Shannon Jr. a bit more and Conley a bit less? We need to save Mike for the playoffs. 30 minutes seems a bit high tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a bit high, but he was playing really well tonight. And I think they've done a great job managing his minutes. He hasn't played on both nights of a back-to-back in a little while here, which has been nice. And Jalen Clark did get some extended run with Ant not being out. So I think they've done a good job managing Conley's minutes. And TSJ was out tonight with right groin, soreness, I think they called it. He was walking pretty gingerly in the back tonight. So we'll see what that means moving forward. But I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, they're in a great spot right now, man. Fun win, great Friday night in the backyard at the Target Center. That place was rocking. Great stuff per usual, bro. T-Wolves win their 8th straight. Are you kidding me? Versus Phoenix, dating back to last year. 124-109. Absolute domination from start to finish. 42-32 on the year. 10 games above 500. Half game back from Golden State and the Clippers with 8 to play. As always, huge shout out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. It's much appreciated. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack at Borman13 live from the Target Center. As you can see here, more games than not. Pistons up Sunday, 6 p.m. tip. Catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then, signing out.